we don't believe in glass ceilings within our organizations. We've seen people with criminal records advance to some of the highest positions held in our organization. So, regardless of color or sexual orientation or prior record or anything else, there's no limits within the organizations that we helped create. And I think that the big goal is to restore hope. And when you're not limited, you can be hopeful. And it's a really big deal. I think hopelessness is a plague and causes more damage and destruction in our society than anything else. And so, if we can restore hope, then that's a big deal to us.
Well, Ethan, thanks for coming on the show today. Really happy to have you. Let's just kick it off. Like, I know I've been reading a lot about your story and what you've been doing here throughout your many years in real estate. In 2003, you purchased your first investment property with a $20,000 home equity line of credit. Made a lot of progress since then, but can you walk us through like that transition, like from your first rental property to, founding and building three companies today? Like, how did that transition happen for you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Justin, I'm honored to be here. So thank you for the invitation. And yeah, it all began with my wife and I first saving money and then pulling that money out to invest in a double wide trailer in Owensburg, Indiana. We rehabbed it ourselves and we put a renter in there. And then we did the cash out refi thing. That was really cool to do in the early 2000s. After the banking collapse, it wasn't as great. But we kind of felt like we discovered the secret sauce. And I was in lending before I moved into real estate. So I kind of understood the mechanics of the bank and what the banks wanted to see from their customers. But at the time, Stephanie was getting her PhD at IU Bloomington, and it was we were starting our family. We just had a new baby, and I wanted to pivot from being on the road 3 or 4 days a week to being at home more. And I really felt like real estate was the vehicle for freedom for me. So once we did that single acquisition, we did it again and again and again. I think we got to around 150 single families that we purchased, renovated, and then sold or offered on a lease to own program. Unfortunately, our conversion rate on the lease to own program wasn't very high because our residents didn't fix the systemic issue that was preventing them from obtaining credit. So that allowed us to graduate into smaller multifamily deals and then larger multifamily deals over time.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's been a great journey, man.
So today, let's talk about like the three different companies that you founded and manage today. Can you briefly explain like what those three companies do?
Yeah, absolutely. The first one that we founded was Renewing Management. That's a property restoration and management company. It's ran by Amanda Warren, who's my partner and the president of the company now. Got about 120 employees scattered throughout the state. The second company, I was a co-founder of Volumod, and that's a modular home factory located on 30th and Post, our city's far east side. The manufacturing space is about 150,000 square feet, and the whole building's 250,000 square feet, and we sit on 22 acres there. We employ about 100 individuals at Volumod, and we're growing to produce about 1,000 units a year. Currently, we're running about 350 units per year, but we have the intention of growing moving forward. Lastly, Helix 33 is the name of our development and construction company. That's ran by Eli Marshall as our president. He does a fantastic job securing new land, communicating with investors, attracting capital, figuring out incentives or um, lending or borrowing for these new projects. And so Helix is smaller. We have 10 full-time employees there at Helix, and we like to say we can go from dirt to doorbell on a whole complete vertical integration. with all three companies acting as sisters, working together to help solve the housing crisis here in Indiana.
Wow, awesome. So that's quite a bit. Let's dive into that more. Like as the founder or partner on these companies, like how does your day look like? Like what do you spend your most of your time on? What's like a typical day look like for you?
Yeah, thankfully, all three organizations have great leaders. The Modular company is operated by Ryan Scott. He's our president and co-owner with me. He has 30 years in modular experience, and bringing him aboard to the company is transformational. But I pour into others so that others can pour into others. So typically a week I would have a sync with each one of our presidents, and I like to be the tip of the spear. I love going out to find new deals, and we'll still do acquisition renovation work as well as we just purchased a big commercial building. So I love being able to express creativity within our what we do on the day to day. I've been called to be a loving creator and a stage builder for other people to stand on. So those are kind of like my skills and gifts. And I like to be responsible for the largest decisions of the organization. But I'm not a great, delegator and follow upper. You know what I mean? So I need other people to take care of that for me. Because it's easy for me to make big messes. And I need people with structure coming alongside of me to help make sure that the environments that we're creating are healthy and good.
So you recognize your strengths and your weaknesses, and it sounds like you brought in a great team to kind of help supplement where you're weak or where you don't want to do, I guess, or you can focus on where you're strong at.
Yeah, I'm just really weak in those areas. Yeah. I'm strong on, vision and being creative and, bringing different people together to accomplish a common goal. And, the people are the best and most difficult part of what we do, but they're the ones who get me fired up and motivated to continue growing and continue improving who I am as a leader at this stage of my life. I thought I'd have it all figured out, but every day I learn and every day I grow, Justin.
Wow, awesome.
Yeah.
So do you mind talking about some of your favorite, values and beliefs, and like how have you incorporated some of those values into the companies you own today?
Yeah. The thing that comes to the top of my head is that people are God's most precious possession. And I'm ashamed to say at one point in my journey, I just looked at the income stream that those people would produce and not really holding them in a tender hand. So now it's about restoring hope through transforming communities and creating communities. When we're taking a cornfield and converting it into 303 apartment units, or really forming a community, and how those residents interact with our staff, our team is a really big deal. And providing living wages and major medical insurance and a 401k contribution and an opportunity for growth is a really big deal for me as a leader. We don't believe in glass ceilings within our organizations. We've seen people with criminal records advance to some of the highest positions held in our organization. So, regardless of color or sexual orientation or prior record or anything else, there's no limits within the organizations that we helped create. And I think that the big goal is to restore hope. And when you're not limited, you could be hopeful. And it's a really big deal. I think hopelessness is a plague and causes more damage and destruction in our society than anything else. And so, if we can restore hope, then that's a big deal to us.
Well, yeah, thank you. And when I was reading about your story and your companies, it seemed like your overall goal was to restore hope. That's like your end goal.
Yeah.
But each of your companies was unique in its own way. They're all uniquely doing something to get to that goal.
Yeah.
And one of those things I saw that, is a part of Volumod is that the employees you hire are coming out of, in some cases, coming out of addiction crisis or incarceration, and you're helping them by providing a second chance and, you know, like working at that company to be a part of something bigger.
Yeah. And they're helping us create sacred spaces. So I think I've uncovered one of the most talented and loyal demographics and underserved populations here in our city and state. We've had so many great success stories, and I we purchased an apartment complex within walking distance to the factory, and we've really seen transportation, employment, housing, and daycare as like the four barriers that people face. But these are human beings, they're citizens, and they're deserving of an opportunity. And honestly, Justin, like we need them. Yeah, we need them. You know what I mean? Like if we're going to produce 1,000 units a year, we need able-bodied men and women to accomplish that goal. And so, yeah, it's been one of the most beautiful parts of the story for me as an entrepreneur is just to create a space where people can thrive.
It's amazing. So let's move on to our next section where we call it the hot take. We'll be asking you about your opinion and you know, advice on like what's going on in the current real estate market. So let's dive into a couple questions. What's your boldest prediction for how you think modular construction is going to sort of disrupt the multifamily development space? If you don't mind just speaking on briefly what is modular construction and like how you think that's going to disrupt the industry.
Yeah. Well, modular, I believe, is a better way to build. It's factory produced residential units. The units will be delivered 90 or 95% complete to the site, and it is able to trim the construction timeline by about 40%. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty right now, especially with deportations and tariffs, and modular can add a lot of certainty. I'll give you a contract for 113 modules at a set price, and I'll tell you when they're going to be delivered. It never rains in the factory, so we are without excuse when it comes to delays. And people, the biggest thing that we face is fear, and we can offer a lot of certainty in what we produce. We're also seeing the number of skilled trade individuals decrease over time as people would move into retirement. There's a huge gap there in the skilled trades. And I could take a person, and teach them the simple steps to construction, teach them electrical, plumbing, HVAC, drywall, everything internal in a simple and repeatable, easily to understand format, and those people could eventually graduate out of the factory and into those skilled trade positions. So modular is not right for every build. We're big on repeatable events, but once we have a good modular floor plan, we can repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. So that's a long way of saying I think modular would grow by 10x over the next 15 years. And there's studies that would support that wild prediction. But I think it is a better way to build. When you buy a car, it is produced in a factory. They don't drop off a bunch of parts on your front lawn and then say, good luck putting it together. And we're excited to get Volumod and Indy fully functional, but then build two more plants in the next 3 to 5 years, so that we can really start put a dent on this housing crisis that we face.
Great. That's awesome. What's the biggest myth about modular construction that he can talk to us about for?
Just quality. I think people relate modular with HUD code homes, and they think about a single wide trailer from the 1960s. And so when you control the factory, you control what the factory does. And we do not produce any HUD code homes at all at Volumod. I'm also an owner with the intent of owning property in perpetuity. So I'm not going to produce garbage because I own and manage almost 5,000 units now. So, why would you do that to yourself? And a guy that's renovated all these apartment communities and single family homes, we acknowledge like water is a home's worst enemy. So we need to use building methods and materials to keep the water out at all costs. I also have done dozens of evictions myself, and I've sat with the single mom who's being displaced. And I know that the total cost of home ownership needs to be factored in. So, energy efficiency is a really big deal because that will translate to your electric or gas bill. So, we build smaller, energy efficient units that we believe turnover would be lower than any other new construction project because it's built better. So, biggest myth is just a low quality, and we've got just over 500 units that Volumod has produced that would dispute that myth.
Wow. Okay. And I guess like going off of that, like we're in an environment where construction costs are rising, interest rates are elevated. There's some market uncertainty. How what's like your secret sauce if you can display like anything, like how are you staying active in this market? How are your companies with you being vertically integrated?
Yeah.
How is that helping you stay active and continue building and spark them?
Yeah, we've definitely had to reinvent ourselves over time, and the things that worked in the past may not work in the future. But honestly, this will be our fourth modular project that we're building, and we have uncovered a lot of the learning opportunities of the past, and we've been able to attract a really good ecosystem of subcontractors who understand modular and are not afraid of it. We have really clear scopes of work, and uh, and now we built this ecosystem, this flywheel. And our next project is 303 units in Fort Wayne. We just broke ground on it on Monday this week, and we hope to have the project completed in the middle of next year. So, um, decreasing that construction timeline increases, pulls up your revenue streams, and then decreases your total interest reserve. And we're able to offer our investors a predicted return of around 24%, which is phenomenal based on some of the other opportunities that is out there. And we hope to find investors who care about where their money goes as well. So, if creating good community is important to you and providing these employment opportunities is important to you, we'd love to have the opportunity to steward that wealth for a period of time. I would love to own the property in perpetuity, but this would be a merchant build for us. We're thinking about a 4-year hold on it. But at the end of the day, I'd rather build and sell a project than never build it at all. And this is a really unique opportunity.
Great, thank you. Um, why is now the time to build? Kind of going off of that same market question, like why is now the time to continue building housing or apartments? What makes you bullish on that asset class versus office or storage or hotels? Like what makes you bullish on multifamily in general?
Yeah, I think it's my specific assignment. I'm a housing guy, and I'm the grandson of a carpenter and the grandson of an electrician. And for me, restoring hope, building community, like there's nothing else. So, I love our communities. I love being out there with the site teams. I love hearing the stories that occur every single day. And I want more. So if we're in a housing crisis and you have a house factory, like how could you not produce more housing? Like it's what you got to do. And we've been thankful to collect a lot of third party orders now. We've seen that MyTech really has a strong affinity with modular because they want to control risk and put things in a box. We've also seen that rural developers, we're doing a workforce housing project near Traverse City, Michigan. That's an area where not many contractors want to travel to. Those are kind of seen as our two predicted sweet spots out there in the marketplace. Um, but yeah, we're excited to keep putting it down, keep chipping away, keep learning. We were founded during COVID, and then came out during some questionable financial times with with the interest rates being as high as they are. But if you know anything about real estate, if you hold enough of it for a long enough period of time, you will be okay. So we're just keep on creating great housing stock, filling it up with great human beings, and operating it as to the best of our abilities, with the acknowledgement that we as owners get paid last and not first. And I think we'll just focus on doing that.
Awesome. And yeah, going off that point, but no matter what happens in the market or interest rates or the economy, I mean, people are always going to need a place to live,
Yeah.
like no matter what happens.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I think the income stream of the lower middle class American is the most valuable asset on earth. And if you can tap into that, I think it will create value for you and others. And, our industry, there are some bad actors in our industry, unfortunately. And I think too many of those bad actors are receiving too many financial awards, and that's because of a undersupply. So if we add more supply to the market, then those bad actors would be more naturally cleansed from the ecosystem that exists today.
okay. Awesome. Thank you. Next section is what we call the real deal. I want you to break down a real project you've had, either past or present, and just, give us a breakdown, if you don't mind, on unit count, location, and like any other thoughts you have about the actual project.
Yeah, well, we're closing this afternoon on that 303 units in Fort Wayne. It's called the Orchard on Wallen. It'll be a triplex community. So our triplexes have 2 bedrooms and 2 baths on the left side and the right side, and a 1 bedroom, 1 bath in the middle. It's on almost 40 acres in Northwest Indiana. And yeah, thankfully we're able to raise about $10 million of investor capital. We had one preferred equity partner at 4 million, and then the remainder came from other partners that we've done business with in the past, the majority of them. We're closing a swap on a large bank loan today for $35 million. And our hope is total cost of construction will be 45, and then maybe appraised value or exit price of, in the between 50 and 60 million range, depending on where cap rates are and interest rates are in about 4 years. So yeah, we're excited. We've been working on this one for a while.
What's a while?
A couple of years.
Wow.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. Yeah. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it sounds like it. How did you find the site, first off?
Yeah. Rachel Lee was our development consultant, and she ended up finding the land. The master developer, had sold 2 or 3 parcels, and this was the leftover piece. So we actually negotiated the contract just past Christmas a couple years ago, and then we went through the rezoning and the capital raising and the bank loan and everything else. So it's definitely been a learning experience for us. We didn't go outside of a close group of individuals for raising capital in the past. With Act Rehab, we just recycled capital so quick. We didn't have to go make new friends. But Wallen Road, especially finding the great preferred equity partner, was new to us. And that was like, they brought us or invited us up to a different level of sophistication. So even the banks didn't ask as good of questions as this preferred equity partner. But yeah, we want to do well for them, and we love the idea that they would be able to grow and create more funds in the future and be able to help us with more development projects. Helix has a goal of creating 100 communities by 2040. We won't own and operate all of them. We'll do some third-party work as well. But that it's going to take money to get there. And so we really want this Wallen Road project to be a white paper on what a modular development, when done with excellence, could look like.
Great. Anything about this deal that you think just made it appealing or makes you confident in the deal? Like, what about the numbers that you look at? Like, what about this deal gets you excited about it?
Yeah, we have a couple other properties in Fort Wayne. The market's been really, really good to us over time. It is in the area of new growth. We do comps on Redwood communities as well. Redwood has garages, well done, but you can get a similar unit without a garage for maybe a $300 savings at Wallen Road. So yeah, I think we're lower density. We're not three-story walk up. That's kind of unique value proposition for us. Every unit has its own individual entry. It's only one or two stairs up to the unit itself. Modular by design, they're extremely not only well insulated for energy efficiency, but there's also soundproofing that naturally occurs because there's an air gap between the modules. We also use a 2x6 stud as well. So the noise transfer between units is like almost nothing, and everyone's got their own private yard.
Which is always like a huge problem like in regular apartment communities and
Oh, yeah.
4-story,
Yeah.
properties. Like the noise complaints you always hear from residents. Some really
Noise,
common.
sense, yeah, it definitely is a more common thing. And the secret sauce for our global performance is turnover. We're about 50% lower than a national average. And the more money we can keep in our residents' pockets and the pockets of our investors, the better off we can be. And we really like to think that our residents could, rest under a veil of protection. So when rates started going up and rents started going up, we're about 18 months or a year behind on our rent increases across our portfolio since we had locked in lower interest rate debt with Fannie Mae primarily globally. And so we see if we take care of the residents, they take care of their units, and the entire transaction works well.
Great. And lastly, you mentioned the construction period for this project, 303 units, is about a year.
Yeah, pretty close to that. We'll have our first units coming online next March, and I think we'll be complete in August. Um, and this is being recorded, so construction crew, I'm gonna play it back for you.
Going off of that, like how does the construction timeline and maybe more so like cost for modular construction, like how does that compare to like typical construction timelines and costs you would see in the industry?
Yeah, your timeline is about 40% shorter. The cost is about the same. You might save a little bit on your cost per square foot, but that's mitigated with the cost of the transportation and the crane. But we've really figured out how to do well minimizing those costs, either with shuttling the modules to the site and then this crane. It's a big beast, so we got to keep it fed. And we figured out how to set 9 mods or 12 mods in a day. So it's really pretty miraculous when you go to a site and, all of a sudden you're going from foundation to build homes in an instant.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really fun to watch.
Amazing. All right, so our next section is gonna be what we call like off-market questions, questions that don't always get asked and answered in the industry. We'd love to run a couple questions by you then.
You're gonna know all my secrets by the
Yeah.
end of this, Justin.
What's one of your biggest either operational or leadership mistakes that you made early on while building your companies or scaling? What's a mistake that you've learned from over the years?
Yeah, I would say unconscious incompetence, and that's when you don't know what you don't know. And for me, for modular, I tried to do it without somebody with decades of experience, and that didn't go well out of the jump. So I think my biggest mistake is hiring great people, but not with the specific knowledge set for that area of expertise that I would need them in. And I'm ashamed to say that I've put people through that process because I'm a hope-filled individual, and hey, Justin, me and you, we're gonna do some stuff, and then it may not work out the way that I had originally envisioned, and it hurts me to hurt others. So I would say, making sure that when we bring on leadership, that leadership has experience in the area that they are going to be placed in.
Great, thank you. What's something you think a lot of either multifamily developers or investors get wrong in this industry?
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm pretty isolated and I don't really talk to many other people. So I may not be the best person to think about that, but I would say like modular has not been easily embraced.
Okay.
And I think there's a real need right now for the missing middle housing. So who would be a young person who would do a fourplex or eightplex or a 16 unit urban infill scenario? I really think that it is a huge opportunity. For us, we're bigger, and I want to own 70 to 300 units so I can have permanent on-site staff on the daily basis. But if you could build, fill, and sell those smaller communities, modular really is a shining star in those urban infill contexts, because you don't want a construction site open in some of the areas of our city for a long period of time. And getting started in real estate, there was no regional manager, there was no property manager. It was me with an Excel sheet until I grew to 100 units, So if you're just getting started in real estate, you find a partner, you find a piece of land, and you can operate without any of that overhead and just keep that property management fee or asset management fee. But and it should be easy to outperform some of the larger apartment developers with their systems and processes and bureaucracies. If you're young and or even later in life, I mean, just to have that monthly resident interaction, to get to know the names of your residents, to get to hear their stories, to form relationships with them, I think you could offer them a great value and create a lot of value for yourself. And it's my hope that more people would have the courage to dive into this industry, because I still think it's fraught with opportunities.
So it's not oversaturated in your opinion. There's still lots of opportunity, a lot of growth out there.
No, I think if you think it's I would encourage you to go to 3 or 4 apartment communities and then ask yourself, could I do better than this?
Wow. Okay.
You know what I mean? Call the phone, see if they answer, see how the tour goes, take a look at the model, or, tour a unit or two, and could I do better? I think as an owner operator, you just have a different mindset. And, I think economically, I think rents are still too high. I think, that there could be opportunities for even communal housing where we would bring down the cost per unit to 750, $800 instead of the 1,000 or 1,200 that we more commonly see. But yeah, I think it'll take courage and creativity, and that's stored up in the next generation.
Awesome. Um, what's what do you think separates a great property management company from like the bad ones? And I think property management is one of the most critical and
Yeah.
most difficult aspects of this business. What separates those great property management companies from the ones that don't perform well?
Yeah, I would say empathy.
Empathy.
Yeah, I think like I've done maintenance, I've done property management, I've cleaned units, I've received the resident phone calls. So, like my employees, I mean, I have so much respect for them, so much respect for them, and they can see that and feel that. They receive that in the way that we compensate them or we bonus them. And, we have a nonprofit foundation, and just giving the property managers an opportunity to give the residents a voice um, is a really big deal for us, so they can nominate these residents anonymously, and we have funds set aside, or we can help these residents when they may face a difficult situation. It's not 100% hit rate, but just empowering our property managers with that ability to help is a big deal. And then, yeah, just pouring into them. We had a recent CAM graduate. Tashua just graduated. our passed our CAM exam a couple weeks ago, so got to celebrate her yesterday. And in Lafayette, the maintenance guys out there are putting in a 250-foot paver pathway to the playset, and they're spreading out 600 bags of mulch, and if you get like too corporate and too clinical, like, like you're not going to do that. You're just going to get some bids, So I don't know. I think of like it's a business family, not a family business, but like I care about our people. And I think, it's been said that culture is how you feel on a Monday morning before you go to work. And culture is how I feel when I interact with my employees. And after, walking a couple miles with my employees yesterday out in the hot sun, like I felt revved up going home. You know what I mean? Like these guys, they're doing it every single day, and you can't fake property management, and email doesn't fix a toilet. You know what I mean? So, and you have to contort your body, and you have to have the difficult conversation about the rent being late or picking up the pet waste or whatever it might be. So I don't know. It's a real business, and it's been the most difficult investment for us is getting that property management company stood up. But it's also been the best investment affecting all of those lives.
Right. And lastly, what do you think is the biggest risk in multifamily development?
Yeah, I think uncontrolled costs.
Okay.
Yeah, and just, subcontractors and change orders. And it would be a lot easier for me to just third party, third party, third party. But things can get away from you if you're not in control. So, yeah, I really think it's cost and then time frame, unfortunately, that you're not going to hit the time frame that you had originally projected, and then your investor return starts diminishing over time. And it's really hard to become a new developer, and when we were standing up volume mod, I was like, oh, how do you even compare? I'm not Buckingham, I ain't not Thompson 3. I was like, I can't, like, how do you even get started? And why would any of their subs call me back? And it's like, well, they probably don't want to because they're filled up, when interest rates were 3 or 4%, they were just wide open, But I think modular is specifically created for an emerging developer because it's like a super sub. Think of it, you got 15 skilled trades in a box with a dollar sign. We've taken a lot of the uncertainty out of the development process. And I really think it's going to more equalize the playing field a little bit. So an emerging developer doesn't have to cannot compete as much as an established developer. So
Yeah.
for us, that was helpful, and it's helpful when we're penciling units now that we don't have to go and get 15 different bids for all the different things. We can have one bid from one super sub.
Yeah. And it seems like what, my impression is what, with building modular is that you have like this system, you have like this blueprint.
Yeah.
You know the cost, you know how the timeline is going to take to build. You just have more of a certain, investment versus going out and building something you haven't built before. It's like more familiar to you and less uncertainty.
Yeah. And you built the same thing,
Yes.
like that's the same unit in Cumberland as it is in Fort Wayne.
Yes.
And here's the scope of work. Here's exactly what you need to do. And it's predictable. If you think about getting something from IKEA, the first bookshelf took you 3 hours, then it was an hour and a half, and then it was like 40 minutes. It's the same story with modular. It just goes faster with more experience.
Right.
Awesome.
Well, we go ahead and wrap it up. I got a couple conclusion question I'm going to ask for you. Your vision behind sort of like this ecosystem with Helix, volume mod, renewing management. How has this model helped you scale faster and create that long-term impact that you're going after?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like I woke up and it's like, I'm going to create this great ecosystem. It was like, what is your next obedience step? So for us, it was renewing first and volume on second, and then Helix third, as we found out that we needed to do proof of concept. Like, this city was not waiting for modular to bring up, like they were waiting for us to put everything on the line to show that it was good. And we did that, and we've done it. And now, when people walk the line, they're like, wow, this looks great. But when they go to a community, they like, I would never know. And it's like, you're right, you wouldn't ever know, because it's as good or better than stick built. But now to see the flywheel really, taking shape, and to have collaboration with the city of Plainfield, with Michigan City, ongoing discussions all over our state. We had the high honor of the governor coming out to visit the factory about a month ago. And, if municipalities need housing, we can offer a predictable solution. And, being able to work with incentives and know that, hey, we care about the communities that we operate in. It would be our hope that we could um, operate these communities in perpetuity, to add to your tax base, to provide a place where the next generation can lead up, is a really important thing that's being really well received.
Great. And I'm getting the sense, I'm sure like all of our listeners can get the sense too, that you don't seem like a person that's motivated by profit or squeezing the last bit of dollar out of every project that you're doing. Like, you kind of touched on this already. Like, what gives you the most satisfaction? Like, what makes you excited when you wake up every day?
Yeah, the transformation of human beings is the most exciting part of my everyday, and I've got to watch that in real time, day after day after day. I would say my journey began with a thirst for financial reward. And then it changed when I was 30 years old. My whole outlook on life shifted. And so now it's about transformation. But after I accomplished those goals, it was like a mirage, because nothing really changed. It was like this false horizon with the number of units, or the size of the balance sheet, or the amount of liquidity. And what are you doing this for? You know what I mean? Like, and how much is enough? And do we really own it all, or does God own it all? And if God owns it all, then we are just stewards of what we've been given, for a short time here on earth, and we just want to do the best job we can with his most precious possessions.
Free. What's next for you and your companies, Ethan?
Just continue.
Are you in?
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, we'll do another AC rehab. We have one under contract. Well, it should be under contract. The LOI is signed. PSA should be out next week. There's a big monster here in the city that has a very high vacancy rate that you may take on or may not. I'm not sure if the seller would be realistic in their expectations or not. But then we just want to do more deals. We want to provide about a third of the pipeline for volume odds. So Helix would purchase about 300 units a year out of volume odds, 1,000 units per year. We want to be able to sell to third parties as well. So it's not all contingent on us or all contingent on them. I don't believe in nepotism. I'm a free market guy, and I want to be able to share the benefits of modular with other people. Other than that, on a personal front, our last daughter will graduate in a couple years, and it's great to fall more in love with my wife every single day. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, where can people, learn more about you, your companies? Where can they follow you? And where can any investors go to learn more about your projects?
Well, this is going to sound super arrogant, but we have claimed the domain ethanfernhaber.com, and that would bring you to my main page, and then the sister companies could be found from there. It's helix33.com, volumod.com, and whereyoumatter.com for redoing management.
Great. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you for your time, Ethan.
Thanks, Justin. You're awesome, and I can't wait to cheer on your success in the decades to come.
Thank you, sir.